Hi, this is Quilting with Cindy. Today I'm going to talk more about the t-shirt quilt that I am making. So I've already started doing a lot of it, but I wanted to show you how to break down your t-shirts real quick so that you know the quickest, easiest way to sort of do it. You can use your rotary, you can use scissors, you can do it by eye, you can use your little template if you want. I find, and later I'll show you why I have my little chalk pencil. But basically, you just sort of, you've got to scope out your t-shirt, you know, so like in this case, I'm going to use the pocket, and there's a huge logo on the back, so I'm going to take most of that as well. As you can see behind, to the side, keep the scraps, because you will be able to use them later. I've already started doing a lot of it, but I wanted to share sort of a quick, easy way to dismantle your t-shirts so you know what to keep, what not to keep. So like in this case, this one has a pocket. Some of them will have logos on the front, some of them have them on the sleeve if you want that as well. Usually there's either a big one on the front or in this case on the back. So I don't need the sleeves, I don't need most of the front, so I will cut it accordingly. Keep your scraps, so like I have a pile here of the different colors that I've already cut out of the t-shirts, because when you're piecing it together, depending how you do it, you can use it to fill in around. So you can either do your quilt so that you are, maybe you have t-shirts that have all the same size. So you don't need the scraps. You're just gonna grab them, sew them together, and be done. The t-shirts that I have, all different sizes. So basically, I'll show you my elaborate chart, the nerd in me, and then how to go from there. So let's start. So you can cut with your rotor, scissors, whatever you want. I just do it freehand for the most part, but you can also use your little template or a ruler just to help you. But for the most part, what we do first is we take the sleeves off. So I just cut a little snip for you guys, and then we just stick it in here and just sort of go right along the seam. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to cut off, depending what you're doing, you're going to cut off this part anyways whenever you get to the back or the front, whichever area is impacted by it. So don't worry that it's still there. I just try to cut as close as possible so that I have more salvageable fabric that I could use for something else. So when we're maybe doing a border on one of the quilts, not the quilts, the blocks. So one done now, it's sped through so you didn't have to see all the boring stuff. And we'll finish off the last sleeve. Voila. So now we have our t-shirtless, or sorry, sleeveless t-shirt, which, if that's what you want, there's a good way to easily make yourself some if you just want to wear them that way. Okay, so front. So now usually what I do is I will cut up through to the armpit. And again, it doesn't have to be precise. You can. I just kind of, usually because it's folded, you'll see it, I don't know if you can see it, there's a very faint crease, and that's usually what I just sort of eyeball and cut straight up. So this will be much faster. And you can get normal scissors. I just like my little kid scissors because they fit better in my sewing kit. But you don't have to. It's whatever you want. So now, same sort of idea with the sleeves. For the shoulder seam, just cut, doesn't matter which side. I tend to cut along the front side so that usually the back has more stuff. So now we've got it all open, same thing, off to the other side. Uh-oh. So, and lastly, now we can shoot it right down. And like I said, you can be more precise, because obviously, if it'll not curl, obviously we've got a lot of weird little jagged edges, but since I'm not going to use that much, I don't really care about it. So now we have two pieces, the back and our front. So this is, if I was really ambitious, which I'm not, I'm being lazy today, but for like pockets, what you can do is get your trusty little seam ripper, and I could go through and you usually can see the stitching, and you can just use this to undo it, and then I would just peel it right off. I will probably do it later, but right now I'm just going to cut sort of a bigger area so that you can see what I'm doing. Because most of the logos that I have weren't pockets, so this is, I think, the only pocket I had. But again, it's probably better to just rip the seam out, which I'll do later and show you when I do the finish. So I just tend to cut all around. Right. And then I find folding everything and getting it all out of the way, it just keeps it neat and tidy. It's up to you, you can throw it on the floor. I have dogs, so they'll just get into make messes of whatever I have, so I tend to try and clean up as I go. Alright, so you see, I have several different piles. I have some that are like the sleeves and the extra little things, and then I have the backs and stuff. They're bigger, so when I'm doing things, I know. So now we've got front, back, ready to go. So like I said, you can do whatever you want. Some quilts, people use literally like just the backs, and they cut the same inches, width and length, and they all are the same, and it's not as much work. Because this is made for a memory of one of my best friends' brother had passed. I'm trying to salvage as much of the t-shirts to put on there for his mom. So I will show you what I did next. So bear with me, let me grab it. You can laugh all you want. This shows how much of a nerd I am. So it does not need to be this elaborate. I am very anal and overanalyze everything. So because all of mine were different sizes, as you can see here, I'm just going to hold it up so I'll disappear for a second. So as you can see, there's all different sizes. I broke it down into columns. So I know for the general part how wide. I picked the widest logo. So the widest one I had was 18 inches. So what I did then was I said, okay, I'm going to have 18-inch columns. I want it to be it's like going to be 90 by 100 because it's going to be sort of just like a throw on the couch. You can snuggle in it, etc. So need to lose a little math. I can't get to it, you'll see it, but you can use your phone. I have a little calculator as one of my must-have items in my little sewing kit, to use it to sort of figure out, like, you know, I add the length. I had to double check, so you will notice, like this little purple one here, I decided to use more of it, and I was lazy and I didn't want to recut my little squares. You do not need to get this anal about it. You don't need to cut out all the little squares. I just find it's easier for me, I'm very visual, to lay it out so I know what to do. Graphing paper, which is basically all this is a wonderful thing. So for every little block, I counted that as an inch. So, and then I just whipped out the tape and taped it together and then laid it out. And you'll see, there'll be pictures on the video popping up so you can see what I did. So I sort of showed, I knew this was one column, this was another, etc. I had piles of my t-shirts, and I double checked because some of them, when I cut it, I decided to use more or less. So I had to, you know, like in this case, I made it shorter. I folded one in. This one was actually the t-shirt that is the memorial of Bobby. So it has this picture, a bunch of pictures of him and etc. So I made it bigger. It's more of the t-shirt, not, you know, the picture itself is all there, but I just had the border of it bigger. So for me, this is just an easy way for me to quickly be able to figure it out, and then I could lay out the pieces and go, okay, it's this long, and I know I can add these all up. It's 82 inches minus 90, that gives me 8 extra inches to stick here and there. You might not have room between them, that's fine. Like this one here, they touch. There's nothing wrong with that, it's your preference. Same with the width. They don't have to touch, they can. It's up to you. So, but like I mentioned before, you will need interfacing, which you can get at the fabric store. Usually I've found it at the Joann's where I am. It's literally right near the counter. It looks just like a regular bolt of fabric, but it's interfacing. There's different thicknesses and textures and all this based on what you're using it for. Or you can get they have little bags of various things. Again, it'll tell you this is really good for quilting, this is really good for clothes, to line something, you know, for maybe you're doing a collar and you want it to be a little stiffer, so it'll do that. So I can show you real quick some that I've already put the interfacing on. So, because normally, as you know, it's all wobbly, but with the interfacing, let me flip one over here. What you'll see is now they are nice and stiff. So, very simple to do. What you do is there is a textured side on your interfacing. So one side's usually soft and the other side, and I don't think you can see it. You might be able to see it in the difference in the texture. So this side actually you can feel bumpies on it. So this is like the sticky, it's not sticky now, but once you put heat on it with the iron, it will get sticky and it will adhere to the back of your t-shirt, and then it makes it a little stiffer and easier to sew. So like this particular t-shirt is one of those thicker ones, so it's a little more stabler, but some of them are the really thin t-shirts, and when you start sewing and working with them, yes, Moose, hello. Hold on, I gotta kiss him. When you start working with the ones that are really thin, they start stretching. So having the interface on the back really helps it keep its shape. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with, you know, one side of your quilt, your square might be really wide and the other one's really tiny. So the interfacing really helps. This particular stuff was like 99 cents a yard, so fairly cheap. I had to get, I think I figured it out. If I calculated right, I could be wrong. It's only 20 inches wide, and since it's 90 by 100, I ended up getting like 12 yards. I know I'll use it in the future, so I'm not really worried that I don't have enough or too much. But again, what I may do is once I get the rows done, I may add it again to the back just to stabilize the whole thing. So I wanted to show you real quick about the interfacing part. So, see my little chip clips I was mentioning to hold my t-shirts together for this group. I've already pre-cut all the interfacing, but what you should always do first, just so you make sure you know what you're doing, is I've already done it once, but you can see here. So to make sure you're doing it and you've got the right side of the bumpy stuff down, grab a piece of your scrap and a little piece of your interfacing, and you can do that. So if you buy it in the bolt, it's not going to have directions, but like I had a pre-existing little package. Basically, you want to iron on medium, mine set for the steam, so that it'll give you a little moisture enough to melt. So like right now, as you can see, that side is melted onto the fabric, but it doesn't ruin it. So like you can't really see anything on this side, but you want to sort of do a test, just to make sure you're comfortable what you need to do. You only need to keep it on there for about 10 seconds. So I'll count, because this is what I was doing all day yesterday. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So now where it was is now stuck. So they recommend you are not supposed to do the normal move. You need to push down for 10, lift it up and do 10. So what I was doing was I sort of alternated across. So they recommend you overlapping. So let's do one of my little ones. So maybe with this light you'll be able to see the sticky. So this side is super smooth. And you'll notice, probably not, but I wrote in the corner so I knew what sizes these all were. Because some of them are very similar and I didn't want to use the wrong one. Or I ran out and I pieced other pieces together to be able to do the whole thing. So, but this is the bumpy side. It has a very faint sort of bumps all over it. So you're just going to line it up on your fabric. Again, it can be too big. It's not going to matter. So like right now, you can see it. So then, and you'll see, like the one part didn't stick because it was down in this section, which is not touching it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now, and you'll see I have little bumps, but it goes away. And then I just alternate in a different direction. 2, 3, 4, 10. And then last, do the last corner. And you'll see once you're doing it, especially on the bigger ones, you'll notice like little bubbled areas. So you can sort of see it's bubbled here. So you know that this is not actually touching anything. So sometimes when you overlap, you'll miss a section. Just go back and it's not a big deal. Just go back and do it. Voila. So now you can see it's nice and stiff. So that's all you need to do. And like I said, so I already have that mapped out, so to speak. I have all these in order. And I'll show you one of the sleeve ones, just so an example since I mentioned it. So you don't have to do the sleeves. I just was keeping everything. So I'll have a long and skinny one. But see, you can see like it's all wiggly. It curls up a lot. So having the interface actually keeps it really stiff so that when you're actually sewing, it's good. So for the piecing around that we talked about, and I use a lot of the existing t-shirt material, I did not put interfacing on the back. You can, if you want to ensure that everything is, they weren't very big, so I just didn't feel like doing that. So for the ones where I've done the small ones on top of a big one, I will be coming back through, like I said, and doing a piece of interfacing on top of it just to make the whole thing stiffer. But for this, just the trim, I wasn't going to bother. So, but anyways, so that's how you do it. Be careful of your iron. You can burn yourself. Make sure you turn it off and unplug it when you are done. Sit it somewhere that your dogs can't trip over it, or children, or yourself, because Henry almost pulled it off while I was trying to heat it up. And I started doing this already, so let me get rid of my giant map. You don't need it right now. So, well, yeah, I actually do. Darn it, hold on. Get myself all discombobulated. So, hold on. So, if you want to zoom in real quick, just on like up in this area, just so I can sort of talk to it. So you can see here, so I have like, there is 2 squares. So there's going to be 2 inches of some sort of border around this. So I sort of like noted how many inches between each one. I know this is 18 inches wide. You know, each of the blocks tell me how wide they are. So this one's 14. So to make 18, I'm going to put 2 inches on each side. So you can either use completely different fabric. You could just cut a strip of 18 by 96, I think was my total length. Sorry, 80. So you could cut it 18 inches by 100 inches and be done with it. But then to me, that's a lot of dead fabric, for lack of a better word. It's just not, you're just not using it. So to me, for the small ones, I'll show you, I've used a whole chunk. But for all these big pieces, I'm just putting the inch or couple inches around it versus wasting the fabric behind a t-shirt that you won't see it anyway. So you can use like I said, so keep the scraps. You can sort of cut and, I was gonna say cut and paste, that's, you can cut and sew using these, or Bobby's favorite color was blue. So I have a stack of different colored blue fabrics that I have that I'm going to use along with t-shirt stuff to sort of do it. So here, put my little thingy away. And you gotta be careful of these. They're very sharp on the end. So I broke my cap, but they have different shapes and sizes. But I always make sure I put it away, because if I leave it and I grab for something, I've stabbed myself a couple times. It is not fun. So anyways, so I have gone through, we won't show you that one yet. So I went through sort of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So like on the first one I decided to just put a blue border. So not the same blue. It's not t-shirt, it's just regular quilting fabric. And you can decide how you want to do it. If you want to do 2 strips on the side, shorter in the middle, you could do long across the top, shorter on the side. Again, since I'm bordering something else, I could use another color on that one, or I could just connect right to it. So it's up to you. I cut and paste, oh my gosh, I'm going to keep saying that. The computer person in me. I stitched together several pieces, as you can see here. That bottom one is actually several little chunks of blue that I sewed together, because it's not really noticeable. You'll see a very faint seam, but in the grand scheme of things, it won't be as noticeable when you get it all done. So then I didn't want to mimic all the same colors. So like for my red one, which was next, so I could just connect it, which I think, all right, okay. No, I did not do that on this one. So on this one, I decided to go with gray. So I've already cut, and it's up to you. You could do this one by one. I just tend to prep it all ahead of time. So, so like I went through, like I said earlier, I cut all the t-shirts except for my example one for you guys. So I've already cut them all out, stuck them in stacks. I had already did my little elaborate layout to figure out what's going where from the different t-shirts. There it is. My book, that I've mentioned many times, is right now. So on my book, I basically went through and I had calculated out. So hold on, let me flip it. So like on here, I went through and listed out all my t-shirts, the different colors, whether they had a front, back, or sleeve logo. And then I measured them all. So I went through, and again, I overanalyze. You don't need to be this obnoxious about it. And then I kind of went through and calculated like what was the length, what would work. And I literally, I cut the shapes out just so I could do that part. So I sort of laid them in columns to figure out what looked good, what didn't, and try to get the same general length overall. And then I just noted like, oh, number 10 t-shirt, the front, or 21 back, or number 2 sleeve, that sort of thing, which is what I then transferred over to my giant sheet, just to make it easier. So in this case, I'm going to, oh, I gotta remember what I did. So I picked gray. And these are long, I haven't cut them to fit. I just cut the general length. So in this case, so it's going to look like this. So again, I might not have a border between this one and the next, which I don't think I did on one of my example that I did. But I'm just trying to keep myself organized so that I can go, I've done with this piece, all the t-shirts are cut out. Now I've done the interfacing. Okay, that part's, all the t-shirts are interfaced. Now let me do the borders, or cut the borders out, you know, etc. And then as I started sewing them, so you can see, so this was on top. So I gotta watch, now I'll get myself all confused. But I wanted to show you this one. So I had several, so these were the pockets that I had. All right, so instead of trying to piece a border around it, because they're so small, it's not a lot of dead space. So I just figured out what I would need to go between the two areas. So in this case, on my little map, it's this little area here. So I just stuck these in here, so I will sew them on. I just have to check because, as you can see on this particular one, some of the interfacing is a little past it. There's a couple little chalk marks, which I will show you, which I forgot to show you, but I will go back and show you on it. So I just need to get it sort of cleaned up. So before I sew it, I'll trim off to make sure nothing's showing and that it looks neat. So for that, let me go put everything, just putting it back in order. I know the sizes, but it's less confusing for me. So for bear with me, my brain stopped for a second. Not enough caffeine. So where is the little, there it is. So once you cut out your t-shirts, and I'll let you cut this part out and backtrack it. Anyways, we'll do the big one. So once you have the back cut out, so I was saying that I was going to use, where's my little cheat sheet? I'm going to be really mad because once again, I did it in the wrong direction. Dang it. This is what gets me for being overanalyzing. So, because I forgot to double check that this was correct when I laid it out. So, this one is supposed to be this. So it's supposed to be 16 by 10. And really, it's not supposed to be sideways, it's supposed to be up and down. Which means now I'm completely off and I'm going to have to revamp this whole row. Never fun. But anyways, I digress. I won't show you my pain and suffering until later. So anyways, so once you have sort of what you want to do, what I tend to do is, let me turn it sideways because it's easier to do. I sort of just cut, so like you don't need the collar or the little seam from the shoulders. So I just sort of line it up and then I do whip this out so that I can make it even and go across to get rid of the collar piece. Put it in my little pile. Same across the bottom. I figure out how long, what did I say, 12? 10 by 16. This is the good thing about getting a larger one. So this is actually 24 inches by 18. So I think they have bigger ones, which is probably what I'm going to get since I've managed to cut through in several places on this. And now I'm cutting on my table. So my friend had a very good suggestion. You can get like the felt backed tablecloths, the plastic cover, you know, like for picnics and stuff. Painting is a good thing for it too. That's what I really use it for. But you can put it down, so if you do have this where you're doing like me and you're cutting through sections, because I just do it a lot and I tend to use the same section, so I'm now shifting out. It just makes you use your brain more. Oh, I got 10 and I'm starting on a 3, so that goes up to 13. So unfortunately I just kept doing it from 1, so that's my problem. So anyways, so you can do this. If for some reason it's too wide for any fabric, I just fold it in half. Just make sure your top is matched. So if you can see here, I have it all lined up. It all is across there evenly. So that way, now it's easier to see the lines. You can cut it where you want. And I'm going to do it. Blah, 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 blah. So I said 16. It's definitely more than 16. Did I do the wrong shirt? This is the right one. Okay, I just completely muffed up the. So in this case, and this is where you have to do a little figuring. So I always try to keep the logo centered. So in this case, you can maybe faintly see the outline. I'm going to make it 18 inches total. So there's about 1 inch on this side of the writing and 1 inch on that side. So that is what I'm going to cut it as, which means I need to shift to make it line up. So now I'm lined up on 20 and 2. So then I can use this to cut it all off, the extra stuff that we don't want. And this one. Voila. So now we have a big square. Oops, no, it's upside down. A big square. But as you can see, we still have this weird stuff on the side. So again, I'm just going to lay it out and figure out how far across it is, which I believe was, and I really did not write that one down at all. Unless I mixed up my 3 and 4. Ooh, that would be bad. Let's see. I might have mixed up my 3 and 4. Nope, it's still not. I don't know. I completely did not measure the right thing on this one. So again, I'm just trying to center it so there's about the same amount on either side. You can get really, so what I could do is line it up, and this is where your lovely little chalk pencil comes in handy. So you can scoot it out a little past where you want, and then you can just sort of mark it. And they have different colors, so I swap depending which fabric I'm using. So this one's orange. I figured the white will stand out. So now I have an idea of where it is, and then I can figure, okay, I want to do it. Oops. I want to make it 15 inches. So again, you can note where it is. You can do it on both sides. Same on this one. 15. And then you can just, and that gives you a guideline, so when you're trying to cut, you can just line up all along the little white and be able to shorten it really quick. And white on this side. Voila. So now we have the back. And again, you can eyeball it. You don't have to use the pencil. You don't have to use this. It's up to you. For the bigger ones, I tend to use this just because, as you can see, that's still not centered. So I see I did it too short on that side. So now I'll just have to tweak it a little and bring it in. The bad is actually in a little further than the beginning of the da, so I'll have to sort of have a little extra space on one side and not on the other. So I will have to double check it. Again, you don't have to be that picky. Just because it's, you know, sort of like a memorial blanket for my friend, I don't want to, I'm being very meticulous about how I do it. So, so anyways, so that will show you how to cut it out and everything. And then, as I mentioned, we have, let me get rid of the scraps to my various piles so I know which one's which. So I did several of them already. So I've already done the interfacing, I've already done the borders, and I've actually sewn them together so you can get an idea of what the t-shirt is going to look like. So this is actually the bottom of that first column. So, so again, I just picked different borders. So here's a good example on top there is a little, that was on the pocket. It wasn't a pocket, it was on the breast area, you know. So I just put it on a black background so it pops a little. And then you can see, I just made them. So these are all 18 inches. And you'll see, even though you try, especially with t-shirts, you can see it better on the back. they will not be in a straight line. It's a given. I don't think I've sewn anything that remains exactly the length that I cut, because when you're sewing the seams, if you're not staring at it and being meticulous about it, you can easily wiggle a little bit, you know, millimeters here and there, and in the long run it will make them all different. But when you're sewing it together, and before you sew your columns, you can go through and make sure they're all the same length. So like this one here, you can see it goes wider at the top. So I'm going to have to cut this corner to make it even so that it's all 18 inches, which I'll do once I have the whole column done. And then basically you're just trimming it, and then you can sew each of the rows together. Columns, I keep saying rows. And you can do it in rows. I just did it in columns just because I had a lot that were long, tall. But you could do the same thing, row-wise. I was trying to minimize the extra stuff I needed. So that is the front of the quilt.